Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's session. We're so happy to have with us Mary Ann Post, who's one of our Avid Master instructors covering today's session on Media Composer, Media Management, Never Lose Your Media Again. So it's a good topic for those of you that may need some little hints in organizing. As you know, this session is being recorded, and we will post these back to avid.com so you can take a look at them later. Feel free to raise your hand or ask a question if you're watching us in Zoom, and we'll get that taken care of for you as well. Go ahead, let us know where you're watching this from globally. I am trying to monitor the social feed, so if you do have a question, you can always enter those in your LinkedIn or your YouTube or your Facebook, and we'll get those over to Mary Ann as well. So I see people dialing in from the UK. Awesome. Colombia. Great to have you guys on today's session. As you know, Mary Ann Post, she's one of our Avid Master instructors, and she's also right in a lot of the curriculum. So she's got the expertise you need for this session, that's for sure. So Mary Ann, I know you have quite a bit to cover. I'm going to go ahead and do the handoff to you.
All right, thanks, Dawn. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. And as mentioned, today we're talking about my least favorite topic, media management. Least favorite as a creative, but I totally understand the importance of gaining an understanding of how to organize and manage your media inside a Media Composer. Our emphasis today is going to be on standalone local systems and not like shared storage through like Avid Nexus and that kind of thing. We got to pick our battles because it's a big topic. Also, my focus is going to be on file-based media. So from, file-based cameras, Photoshop files, animations you download or create and output, that kind of thing. So non-tape based, that's another topic for another day. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you guys are seeing.
Yep, we're seeing you.
Composer? Okay, yep. Great, because I just got a funky message. We don't want funky messages. Okay, so I'm inside Media Composer. A lot of this is going to happen on the desktop, some in Media Composer, because I'm going to focus on organizing and managing and the different types of media that you are going to be organizing and managing. First of all, though, what is the key to successful media organization and management? And because it's media management, it's going to be a few slides, but I try to be more creative than PowerPoint. So we need to be mindful and be strategic. Okay, it's kind of like when we first work with computer software, save early, save often, so you don't lose your photos that you touched up and that kind of thing. Be mindful, be strategic with media management, you're all set. Okay, so easier said than done. Be mindful, pay attention to where you put your stuff. Okay, and I'm talking to myself too. How often have I opened up a Word document, started creating and hit save and have no idea where I saved it to? So where you're placing your video, your animations, your photos, your sound effects, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm going to show you an example. Be strategic. This is more on workflow and troubleshooting. So workflow of, are you going to be linking your media? Are you going to be importing it? And then knowing where those files are going to be stored so that you can troubleshoot if you need to, which is more on the management side. Okay, so I've got some scenarios today. These are common scenarios that I've either run into, or as an instructor, my students have run into, or as a consultant in the past that clients have run into as well. I'm going to get through as many of these as I possibly can. So let's see, and I'm already in the wrong spot here, so let me just click out. Testing a new feature here. Okay. Nervous fingers. Okay, so let's get out of this and let's see our first scenario. One. Right. Essentially, you just want to bring in some media, edit it, Share it with the world. Yeah, me too. And probably everybody else on the call. Okay, so this is all about how to organize at the desktop level, and then a little bit with the types of media that you might be managing in Media Composer. So I'm going to click out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and hide Media Composer. So hopefully you guys can all see my desktop. And on my desktop, I have one of my media drives, one of many. All right. The two folders that are key on my media drive for organization is my Avid Media Files folder and Avid Source Media. So first of all, when you're bringing in file-based media, it might be on a camera card, it might be transferred to a drive. If at all possible, I like to transfer it because then I have an automatic archive. So if you send that camera card back out into the field, something goes awry, and that's your only copy, that's a problem. And we can't fix that in Media Composer. So what I have here is just kind of like a strategy for how you might organize your file-based media. Now, if you're working with on a shared system, meaning local but multiple users use that computer, you might already have a practice in place, or maybe you need one. You can use tips from this session. But essentially what I have here are like different types of projects. I have a short film where everything's organized by scene. Okay, so scene 7, for example, these are the camera native files. But I also have some sound effects and that kind of thing. I have another file that we're going to be actually taking a look at that's got some music, some QuickTime files, sound effects, and all that. If you're doing more documentary, you might be organized. Some people organize by media type, so QuickTime type versus like Red camera. And then this one happens to be for a live show, a music video that they shot over like 3 days. But even if it's episodic, you might even have in here, you'd have your clients or project program type, and then inside that, the different episodes, and then inside that, further organization. But the key with this is they're all in one main folder at the root drive level, okay? So if I'm linking to files, I'm linking to material in this folder. If I'm importing, then Media Composer converts or copies this camera native, as we refer to it, which is a very narrow name for lots of different media types. If I'm importing it, it's going to copy it into the Avid Media Files folder, into an MXF folder, and then they're numbered from there. Okay. You'll start off by default with a 1. Once it hits 5,000, it'll be a 2. And then when that hits 5,000 files, it's a 3 and so forth. And you can, this is next level, kind of beyond the scope of this particular course session, but you can also rename these. And you might have to do a little bit of relinking. I typically don't, but we're going to talk about that as well. What if my media goes missing? So this is managed media. So when you import or do other media management type functions. So now I'm going to go back into Media Composer. And what I have here is you may be like, I'm not sure how I've organized, where my stuff is, and that kind of thing. You can find out easily by loading a bin with clips in it. And then if you right click on any clip, you can do a reveal file. And it'll quickly tell you that this is actually in my number 2 MXF folder on my gray drive. So if I had imported this, and even if I just plugged in the drive fresh, when I imported it, Media Composer automatically makes the Avid Media Files folder, MXF, and it would have actually then gone into number 1 and that kind of thing. So that's how you can find it. So this is Avid Media. To do a linked media, I'm going to go ahead and create a new bin. I'm going to hit Command N, Control N on Windows, and I'm going to call this AN linked. And I'm having horrible typing issues today, but that's okay, as long as everything else works. Okay, and I'm just going to right click Input and Source Browser. Okay, so when I'm talking about importing versus link, this is what I'm talking about right here. And my cursor is probably moving oddly for you because I was moving too fast. link will link to the camera native and then imports what's going to convert it to Avid media files and put it in the MXF folder. So I'm going to go ahead and find in my source media. So if you're organized, this is pretty easy to do. And then my Anastasia source. And I'm just going to link to some QuickTime movies. So we'll grab these. So I'm going to select all, Command A, Control A on Windows. All right, and then I'm going to hit link, and it's going to go into my AN linked folder. Okay, so there we go. So now I can edit with it and that kind of thing. So this isn't about an input strategy session. That's another topic which I can talk about at to exhaustion. Now, if I came into this project and inherited it, and I'm not sure where these are, I could do a right click on any of these clips and a reveal file, and we'll see that it noted the file path that I created. Okay. So there you go. So organizing, keeping in mind there's Avid Media, Avid Native, and then there's Camera Native, which encompasses a lot of file types. So hopefully that's making sense. Otherwise, hopefully you guys are making questions, adding questions to the chat box. Okay, so then next up for a scenario, you're in the full screen here. Get rid of that. Scenario 2. Okay, this is on management side. Your media drive's not feeling well. Okay. I just actually had this happen last week. My drive was struggling to connect, and then it started making noises, and then it died. Thankfully, I kind of recognized the symptoms and moved my stuff. So where to move it, how to organize it, and then you may have to relink, which is going to be another scenario. Okay, so if it's a drive, maybe you just cleared the drive, reformatted it, and you just started with your first part of a project. So maybe I just launched this project and linked to some dailies. And I'm going to go through these and then maybe make them Avid native. Okay, so maybe I'm going through this and be like, we don't need this one. So I click it and delete. This is why I like linking, because if I don't have to worry about media management on it, all I'm doing is getting rid of the linked files and that. Well, I could go ahead and make this Avid managed and just manage it on my backup drive or another media drive, which I'm going to go ahead and plug in here. So I just plugged in my drive that I'm going to transfer to. So I'm going to just select all. So this is what the ideal time for this to happen. And I'm going to go to consolidate and transcode. Okay, so now I've got another drive, another media drive. And consolidate does a direct copy. So it maintains all the quality, frame rates, and that kind of thing. Transcode will optimize, okay? By the way, this is QuickTime files, and it's the LongGop flavor, so it cannot be consolidated, okay? But if you try to, it'll just tell you can't do it. So, give it a try, because ideally I like to consolidate. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do DNxHD SQ, MRED, and then I'm just going to go ahead and transcode these, okay? All right, so while that's going, let's talk about the other thing. What if you have multiple projects, multiple bins, that kind of thing? You're not going to want to try to remember and track all of that and make it Avid media. Some of it you're going to want to keep as linked media. All right, so what do you do then? Well, you're going to need to do your management. I'm going to cancel this. Command period, control period on Windows. Okay, so you can see that it started doing that. So now I have these that are now on my red drive. And if I real file here, you'll see here's the MXF files. When I plugged this in, all that was on this drive was a folder called backup files. Okay, because this is an emergency drive. Media Composer created all this, so I didn't have to do that. Okay, well, okay, great, but I need to move a bunch of stuff. So then you're going to move it at the OS level, and then worst case scenario is you might have to relink some stuff, which I'm going to show you guys how to do. So once you know where things are and what you're looking for, this becomes pretty straightforward. So for this, all I would need to do is go into my bummer drive and basically select all and move them over, okay? Or at the minimum, so maybe like some of this stuff doesn't matter and I'm trying to clean out anyways, and now it's being forced because my drive's on the fritz, I would select these and move these over, okay? Which is going to take a bit of time, so I'm not going to do that. One note about the Avid media files, notice that there's a 1 here and it's already created, so I don't want to make a second one. So what I would just do is come in here and move these. So I would move this guy to this level where the 1 is, and then things that are in the 1 that I might need, I'll take these files and move them into this folder. And then I might just need to do a little bit of relinking management. But yeah, just maintain the exact file structure, okay, and you'll be fine. All right. So it's, yeah, you're if you just have like these couple folders, all good. Hopefully that's making sense. Okay, for my next scenario, I am going to eject my red. My drives are gray and red, by the way. Not that it matters. All right, so let's go to the next one. Final organization step that I've encountered. There's more, but these are the big ones. Scenario 3. Okay, you're just sent a bin and media. Now what? Okay, so if you've ever had that situation where you're going to have it handed off, whether it's file-based media or Avid media, how does that work? Let's see. So I just popped over to Safari here, and here's some files that were sent to me. So I've got an Avid Media's files folder, a camera native folder, and then a couple of bins. All right, so to download this is going to take about 30 minutes. So I'm already downloaded these, and I actually set it up so that I could choose where I download these. So I'm going to hide that. Okay, and then running low on time already. Okay, so here's my downloads. Okay, and I'm just going to open up a second one here. So that's literally what was on that Dropbox folder. Where do I put this stuff? Well, the Avid media files, I'm going to put in my Avid media files folder. So kind of like the last scenario, if you have a bum drive and you need to move stuff, but your drive you're putting it on is already has the root level, you can move that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this in there. Okay, so because it's already on the same drive, it was fast. So you move the MXF. The B-roll technically can go anywhere, but I've got this source media. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I also have Rock Climber, some stuff of my own. So I'm going to just put some B-roll. Right? And the scenario kind of here is we're doing a highlights reel. And so we're just grabbing our best projects of the year. So anesthesia, Tennessee parkour, and rock climber are going to be the ones that go into this project. As far as the 2 bins, I put those directly in the project folder. Okay. So there's 3 locations. So if you're organized, there's basically 3 locations you're working with. Okay. Users, and I'm working in shared and media composer. Okay. And then if I go to Avid, shared Avid projects, here's today's project. I was working on some other stuff. You could see some other course development. All right, so I'm going to select these and I'm just going to move them right in here. Okay, so that's it. Now they'll show up in my project. The one thing I have had happen, notice it's also rebuilding my database. Okay, now one thing I have had happen recently is notice those 2 bins aren't showing up. If I just do a quick close out my project and reopen it, they'll be there. So I just closed out my project and then they'll be there. Okay, so here's the clips. Okay. And then if I need to link to the B-roll stuff, which wasn't a bin, I can, but I also have a sequences bin and I can open up the sequence and you'll see the material is there. Okay. Now this offline message, that was the stuff I transferred to my red drive, which I ejected. So if you eject your drive, you're going to get media offline. All right. Okay, so I'd be ready to create a bin and link to those B-roll files or import them, whatever my choice was. But pretty easy to move in, and Media Composer takes care of a lot of it, which brings me then to relinking in about a minute or two. Okay, so let me just go to full screen. Let's take a look at our final scenario. So we've got everything organized, followed my lead, or are reorganizing, but help, so media is gone offline. The dreaded media offline message. First of all, make sure your drive's connected, because like I said, I ejected the red drive. So now the media that I was transcoding, let me go to this second, is offline. Okay, so if I reconnect it, that'll be all good. Let me just stop my timer. Okay, but what if other stuff goes offline? So I created an example here where what if your managed media type stuff goes offline? I'm in a bin here of shots in list view, and you can see the offline column, offline everywhere. And to really see it and panic, notice there's a bunch of media missing. Okay, I've got offline media messages everywhere. If it's Avid managed media, so in your Avid native media file folder, MXF, here's what you do. Okay, I'm going to sort by offline. Okay, and then I'm going to select those. I'm not going to do all of these because there's another example I want to do. So I'm going to grab a couple, see if this works. And I go to relink, right click and relink. So this is Avid native. Okay, and essentially you can click OK to the defaults. Two settings I want to point out that if this doesn't work, that may help you. One, there's a checkbox, relink only media from current project. If you're borrowing a bin from another project, like I just borrowed the rock climbing clips bin from somebody else's project, I did not open a rock climbing project, it may not relink those if those go missing. So I can turn that off. This widens the search. The other thing is if you're mixing formats, if you're only doing the current projects format, it also may not relink. So you can go to like any video format and then highest quality. This is what I usually do. Those are the only two things I generally have to pay attention to 9 times out of 10. So I'm going to click OK. And it brought it all back. In fact, it brought back even the stuff I wanted to keep offline. For a sequence example. So if I go to my sequences now, okay, everything's online. So if it is a sequence that you come to and some stuff is offline, just real fast here, you can right click on your sequence and do the same thing. The relinking with the Avid media files folder is super easy. Okay. If it's linked media, okay, so I am actually just going to get rid of these clips. Those are my transcode for when my drive was dying. If it's linked media, everything's here right now. But if I go and do something like a minor change, like I noticed that in my backup of my project, in my anesthesia, there's an X before it because I tested this earlier just to make sure everything was working. So what if I notice that and I'm like, oh, a typo, let's just fix it. Or maybe you're reorganizing your file-based media because you want it to look a little more simple like mine. Stuff's gonna go offline, especially if you rename it, move it, that kind of thing. A simple deleting that X at the front of this will throw things offline. So if I go back into my location here, it is offline. It just took a minute for the column. I'll be like that. I almost thought I had a first where it doesn't happen, like it kept track. So what do I do here? Technically, and most of the time you're going to see the advice if you Google this, to right click and relink to files. All right. I haven't seen this active for a really, really long time. Apparently, some people still do. Just talking to a colleague about this last week, but not me. So a quick, easy way to relink these is just to right click, input, and source browser. So this fits for these two relinking methods that I'm going with, works for any organization or movement, regardless of scenario. So this is always the same. So I'm just gonna kind of help it find it. So anesthesia and QT files, and it was these guys. Now it might automatically start relinking, and you can see that it actually is. If it doesn't, all you have to do is select all, hit link, okay, and it'll relink them for you. So you could do it this way. If you run, this works for me. If it happens not to, you can also go to the desktop level and find them, select them in option, hold down your option key, so option, and option, drag them up to your bin as well, and it'll relink. Occasionally it also copies, fun times there. But I like the source browser method because I have not had the situation where it makes copies, whereas here it does. Okay, so if your linked media goes offline because you're moving things around or you rename something, you can just go to your source browser and link. If your managed media goes offline, so the MXF folder stuff, your Avid native, right click and follow relink, or a sequence. Does not matter which, what scenario you're in. You're just getting stuff on the system, moving across drives, grabbing resources that someone sent you. Once you have it organizing, if you lose link, these two will keep you there. Okay. And I went a little over, so thanks for hanging in there. What kind of questions do we have?
Let's see. I've got a couple that have come in, and feel free to enter the text questions at this time. Eric had asked what OS you were using, and then he was really looking, and he says, "Is that Catalina?"
This is Catalina, yes. And one note, I'm on 2020.8. So one note too that I didn't mention, so I'm so glad you guys asked me questions. So I have all my media organized at the root level of my media drive. Especially if you have the bummed drive situation, and you don't have a backup and you need to put it on your hard drive, excellent. Pre-Catalina, we could put this at the root level of your hard drive, which if you Google it, they'll probably tell you to do that. We can't in Catalina. So if I was thinking, oh, this drive's bum and needs to be replaced. If I try to drag and drop here, it's not gonna let me, okay? In fact, it didn't even click. You'll see the little circle with a slash saying no. Where media files are, and I actually have a graphic for this. Let me go into where your file paths on both Windows and Mac. If you need to put your media files, and this is Avid native, your file-based stuff you can pretty much put anywhere you want, which I don't recommend, of course, based on our session. But yeah, so these are the new default locations for Avid native files on your local hard drive, your C drive, your Macintosh hard drive for Windows and for Mac. But yeah, I'm on Catalina. It's been working.
All right, we got some other questions. We have Andy Evans on Facebook. Do you prefer using linked media or Avid created media? Which do you find is more stable for editing?
Yeah, I definitely like to link just because it's fast to get it in. Depending on the media type, resolution and that kind of thing, sometimes it doesn't play back as well. So what I'll do is I'll link, sort through what I need, and then I'll do the consolidate transcode that I was showing earlier. So yes, I like the link And then once I've got all that done, if everything's performing fine, I stay with link. There's no reason not to. Otherwise, I'll go to my source clips and consolidate transcode. Or if you've got a rough cut together and you're at a phase where you're not really adding stuff, you can consolidate transcode your sequence as well.
All right, great. We'll jump over to YouTube really quick, and a question has come in from Sharpcut. Any notes about editing in proxy and then relinking in full resolution?
Yeah, when you, I don't have a good example of that to really talk about it. If there's a way I can answer that question afterwards, that would probably be best in that situation. But thanks for the question. And if I can answer that offline, I'd be happy to.
I'll get their information for you.
Okay.
So we have David on LinkedIn is asking, are there problems with moving projects between PC and Mac? PC assigns letters and media goes offline.
So I'm wondering, is PC assigning letters on the media side, or I'm not sure if it's, I'm assuming you're talking about Avid media files, yeah. So the Avid native. Yeah, I'm actually just starting to get into that realm myself as a curriculum developer. I'm going to be doing a lot of testing in Windows, and I'm a 100% Mac girl. So those are some of the things that I'm maybe encountering. But like, I've in the past transferred all my files just fine. I know on the Mac, if you have letters, and let me just hide Media Composer. If you have with your Avid media files, any kind of letters here, it's going to be offline. So you just want to switch those to numbers only. Okay, so that might be it. I haven't myself seen it because I haven't been on Windows for a really long time.
Yeah, and he was referring to the volume level, so I think that would help out.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So if you're on the Mac, these definitely need to be numbers.
Yeah. Okay, we're running up on time. Let me see if I can squeeze a couple more quick ones in here. What kind of shared storage solution would you recommend for a couple of editors who can't afford Nexus yet?
Yeah, I don't really have a recommendation for that. I know I've had clients who've used like Edit Share, that kind of thing. But most of my clients were all on Nexus. So, but I have had students who were using Edit Share, but yeah, okay. Up your rates and get Nexus.
There you go. Okay, well, getting this last question here. Okay. When you transcode HD footage to the Avid format, what resolution do you think is best?
Okay. Yeah. I like to use the Avid. Let me just, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. This isn't linked, obviously, but let's pretend this is linked. And when I go to transcode, if you're in HD, you're going to use one of the DNX HD settings. So if you're just using fairly standard, because they've replaced in recent release, the 2020 versions, you no longer get the data rates. So for the most part, most data rates that we're using, you can use the standard quality or the high quality. And then if you're working with 10-bit, you'll want to use the HQX. Okay. People are using Apple ProRes. That's available. So if that's in your workflow, that kind of thing. But mostly I'm using for HD footage standard quality.
All right. I do want to get in this one last quick question because it does pertain to what you're covering. Is there an easy way to transfer only media from a specific project to a different drive?
Just from a specific project? Yeah, and a lot of this has to do with project setup. So for me, I always have, when I bring in media, I have a master bin with everything, okay? So my bin when I start a project is, and I'm just going to do a quick Command N, is going to be, let's see, this is Live Online Learning. That's the client, source. Okay. And then I link and or import to one spot. It keeps me focused so I know what I'm doing, and everything's in one location. Then what I do is whatever I brought in, and let's just pretend that this is the source. Move this out of the way a second. So then let's just close that. Okay, so let's pretend, yeah, that this is that source bin. Then I start moving things into working bins. All right. So yeah, so if this is my master source, even though my labeling for this example is terrible, then I'll be like, oh, okay, this is this particular style footage. And then I will clone it over, hold down my Option key or my Alt key. So therefore, if I have to transcode all the source material for one project into another drive, I know everything that I brought in starts out in this one location, select all, right click, and consolidate transcode. So that's my ideal situation there. And it might be two source bins, one for linked media, one for imported, that if I have to move it. And then I move everything from there into what I call the working bins. So this LOL source now is a working bin. This is my master source bin.
All right. I think we're running up on our time here. Thank you for answering those questions that came in at the last minute there, but they pertain to it really well. And we have some more questions. So I'll get those over to Marianne later. Maybe we lead it to another session. So great questions, everyone. Thank you for asking them. And Marianne, thank you so much for presenting. I do have up on the slide right now our upcoming sessions for next week, including Sibelius and Maestro Designer sessions. So feel free to always check out the upcoming calendar at avid.com, online learning webinars, and check it out, or drop us a note if there is something you'd like to see at live online learning at avid.com. And we're always happy to have Mary Ann with us. Another great session. So thank you so much, Mary Ann, and thank you all for watching, and we appreciate it. So thanks so much.
All right.
Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.